Calling all Swifties and champions of change, Like a Girl Media is rolling out the red carpet for you with our Thrive Like a Girl contest. We're all about celebrating powerful women leaders who inspire us to dream big and push boundaries. And who embodies that spirit more than Taylor Swift herself? Here's your chance to see her live in concert. We're giving away 2 tickets to Taylor Swift's show in London on Saturday, June 22nd. Imagine being part of the magic, all thanks to Like a Girl Media. Entering is easy. Subscribe, share, and show us which episodes inspired you the most. Visit our website or check our social media for all the details. Don't just dream it, be it. Thrive like a girl and make this summer unforgettable. Contest opens globally, void where prohibited, must be 18 or older to enter, no purchase necessary. Subscribe and share with hashtag Thrive Like a Girl and tag us at likeagirl_media for entry. Unlimited entries means unlimited chances. Winner chosen at random after contest closes May 20th, 2024. Will be notified via DM. Make sure your profiles are not private. Check full rules on our site. This is your shot to see Taylor Swift live. Don't miss it.
Welcome to the High Tea with Grace podcast, where we spill the tea on HIT. I'm honored to welcome Smriti Kirubanandan to the pod. Thanks so much for joining us.
Wonderful to be here, Grace. Thank you so much for having me here.
So let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your career journey.
A little bit nonlinear. Really, my education is in robotics and engineering management, then public health. I did go to culinary school in between. So I'm a raw vegan certified chef and a nutritionist. So really, if I look back at it, it's really a bit of, connecting those dots. My early career really started kind of in a startup environment. I think, business development, product development. I really love the creative angle of that. So really worked at the intersection of healthcare and technology for the first decade of my life. And then I spent the last almost 5-6 years in the consulting arm, and now being with Accenture. It's really bringing all our best services, whether it's tech, strategy, consulting, but to really make healthcare more affordable, accessible, and obviously, innovative, right? So that's really the non-linear journey. It's been quite exciting that I'm able to blend in different factors, hopefully to make healthcare just a little bit better.
So interesting. So many different experiences you're bringing to the table now at Accenture. So, I know you're a huge advocate for tequity, and, it's a big buzzword in the space. How do you define equity in the context of healthcare? What metrics do you feel is crucial when you're assessing if something is equitable or not?
A great way to start the session. I'll start with a quote, right? Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. An old quote by Martin Luther King Jr. And here we are in 2024. We're still discussing this. I think it's a little bit sad, but here we are trying to make a change. So equity in a simple form is really the fair and just distribution of resources, access, and opportunities to achieve optimal health outcomes, right? So what do we mean by that, and what metrics do we need to be looking at it? One is the accessibility to healthcare, which means the physical, the financial means, which is health outcomes, economic empowerment, right? Some examples of that. The second one is health outcomes. Literally, examining disparities in health outcomes across different population groups is critical. Some of the examples are analyzing life expectancy, infant mortality rates, and overall life indicators. The third one is really utilization and quality of care. We have to start understanding what the utilization patterns are and how are we creating and delivering the quality of care. The fourth one, which we really talk a lot about, is social determinants of health. Looking at a patient or a person as a whole person, their economic status, their food insecurity status, their home status, right? I think those are all key components to really, how a person shows up and how we need to be looking at care and delivering care. The last one is community representation, ensuring that diverse communities are actively engaged in the decision-making process related to healthcare policies, resource allocation, and service delivery. I think is really crucial for promoting equity as a whole.
That's really interesting. So, there's are different kind of pieces in health equity that you feel, are really kind of amplifying this issue. What actions do you feel like the industry needs to take a stand on to address these disparities, in terms of technology and education and more?
Yeah, great question. I think first at Accenture, we've identified the 5 interconnected pieces that serve as obstacles, right? And I just want to break it down because I think it's critical before we go to the solutioning of this. The first one is implicit bias. Implicit racial, ethnic biases are obviously unconscious attitudes and stereotypes that affect our understanding. And how do we respond to individuals and groups other than our own? These biases, fundamentally, as you know, Grace, they erode the trust, the care. They create a lot of fear in the healthcare system, right? So this leads to the second point. We have a lot of lack of trust and fear in the system by people, some rightfully so. And we saw some of this during COVID, right? There was a lot of hesitation in vaccination. One was really the misinformation, the lack of trust in the system, the lack of communication. So we really look at this in a competent kind of format. It really shows that we all need to show up equally, hand in hand, right? To really build that trust constantly, not just when we have a pandemic. The third one really is access to barriers, which is fundamental roadblocks, which is to prevent underrepresented groups from receiving equal access to care, such as affordability of care, medicines, the effects of implicit bias, health education, which is a huge part. We're now seeing a lot of other organizations focusing on information as a determinant of health, which is really key, right?
Oh, yes. It should be. That should be a determinant of health.
Yes. Sometimes, common sense is a privilege. I would like to say that, not in a condescending way, but it really is a moment for us to say we always need to go back to the drawing board, understanding that we are always learning, though as leaders in the healthcare industry, but also as a moment for us to do better for our community, right? And the fourth one is uneven quality and experience. Like there are stark differences in the quality of care that exists between races. Patients from racial, ethnic minorities frequently receive subpar care and experience, and there is worse outcomes, right? Our infant mortality rates in the US is high. And, we have also seen that how we assume that people from different races have different pain tolerance, right? Which really shows our lack of, or I would say, really a narrow thinking. We just need to become more expansive and broad in our mindset. And the last one, Grace, is, racism in R&D and clinical practices, right? We currently don't have all the parties in for clinical trials, for example. So how do we bring them all in? Because when we're not doing that at that fundamental level, it really shows that we're not ready to give equitable care for everybody else, right? So these are like the 5 components we think need to be moved to really create equity in care.
Yeah, that is super comprehensive and makes a ton of sense. And so kind of knowing that, then what actions do you feel we need to take to act on this knowledge? We're aware. It seems like we're aware of the systems and the issues surrounding inequity generally. Like, how do we move forward with action and changing these things, in technology, in education, and whatever we decide is the next best step?
Yeah, great question and great point that we can't just have ideas and thoughts, like we need to be executing on them, right? And so some of the actions we can take, I think, to address disparities and inequalities in care is the first one, as we're talking, there's generative AI at the core of everything we're doing. So, but before that, I think there has to be responsible data and then AI, right? What I mean by that is we need to have our data foundation and governance in place first, which means that how we collect data, where we collect the data from, really looking at each data point as a person's life journey and history, and not, dismissing any of that, I think is critical. So really responsible data collection. The second one is, unbiased AI. We have the power here to change lives, Grace, as you know. Recently, a colleague was sharing that, the biomarkers created for heart health were mostly driven by men. So when we look at women who have heart diseases or, are having strokes, apparently we see that their biomarkers are accurate, but they have a heart disease, a heart stroke, which really brought them back to the drawing board, showing that women were not really brought into the picture when these biomarkers were actually created. So that's where we are, right? Which is very shocking and disappointing. But that really shows to us that we really need to go back and have responsible data collection, unbiased AI, while we're able to really move the needle to make healthcare truly equitable. The second one is design inclusive products and services, right? Placing equity and empathy at the center of technology, which means inclusive design methods, enabling and drawing on the full spectrum of human diversity and individual experiences to create solutions.
I just want to stop for a second because that was like a fire quote. We need to place empathy and equity at the center of technology. Ladies, we are all know this is true, right? And you're spilling the tea right now. Like that should be at the center of all that we do. Every one of us is a link in the chain of this innovation process. Where can we be infusing that empathy? Where can we infuse that equity? Sorry, you keep going because you're on fire. I didn't mean to stop you.
No, absolutely right. I mean, we can hold some space there because I think we are in a moment in time where technology is really taking us by the horse, I would say. But we always have to come back and think, end of the day, we are just humans, right? We are trying to give care human to human, but it really starts at the place from equity and empathy, and not forgetting that technology is a tool. But, Grace, we belong to a diverse cultural world. We have to embrace that and bring everyone to the table. And we have to make decisions keeping everyone at the table. Healthcare is a fundamental right for all, and we have to design products and technology keeping that in mind. That includes, disability, cultural differences, different languages, economic status, and so on and so forth. The last one is obviously creating sustainable structural changes, right? So this means policies, institutional policies, such as inclusive hiring practices, the types of partnerships that are created, and how participants execute clinical treatment and tools will have far-reaching effects on the sustainability of healthcare system, right? So I think it's not just important that we be the sources of change, but we expect the same from all our partners.
Yeah, that is a really good point too. Everybody should be expected to be keeping this at the center, and it's not enough for just one person or one part of the system to do that. So, thinking about that, are there examples of successful initiatives or strategies that have worked in promoting, health equity, tech equity within healthcare systems that you know of?
Yeah, the first one that comes to my mind, great question. I think we have miles to go. But, the federal investments, there has been, $42 billion to improve internet access. And there's $14 billion, which is provided to extend the emergency broadband benefit program, right? So these are, gives us a sign of hope and shows that there is being importance placed in digital divide, right? There is a call to action on creating responsible AI, responsible deployment of information, which goes hand in hand. I see councils and stakeholders across many organizations taking a stand on how AI has to be used. We also see large investments being deployed in research and innovation to women's health, which are all, great starting points and great momentums we're seeing. Ideally, Grace, I think the question is not how we use technology to create equity. It is equally critical we use an equity lens while creating technology, right? So this lies in the ideation, the design, the MVP of a product, execution, and truly the scaling of it.
It makes a ton of sense. I think you're right. It's like there is so much we could do after the fact. And some of those, initiatives, especially in telehealth, have helped, right? But it's unless we're developing it, keeping that lens while developing it, it's never going to be fully integrated. Part of the genome of the innovation will not be equity unless it's included.
Yeah, I love that genome of innovation.
Yeah,
that's a series by itself, right? What does it take to innovate truly, with equity, but with an all-inclusive mindset? Because I think, a big part of innovation is we cannot do it all, right? We all come from different lifestyles and different parts of life, but having everyone else involved really opens up boundaryless innovation and creativity we can do. And I would love to, share really about the awareness that's required, right? And I think this may be something we will be talking about is how does tech equity impact individual access? I think that's key, right? Before we go into what's been happening. Yeah. So the first line of awareness and action for us is to look at a digital divide, right? We're talking about technology, telehealth, but where are we right now, Grace? 82 million Americans don't have access to internet. I mean, this is 2024. And only 57% of us who belong to the low income have access to internet, right? Then we have to look at our literacy in English and technology. 26 million Americans are not literate in English, which means that they don't have the access to the patient portals, right? And now you can imagine these users lack awareness to benefits of digital. There's mistrust in tech and healthcare system, resulting in low digital literacy overall, right? Some rays of hope is obviously 5G innovation, we think is going to really benefit and make this a little bit better. At Accenture, we did estimate about 8.4 million rural households could gain access to improved connectivity and speeds. Non-white.
So it's possible. It's just not being done because no one is finding the financial reason for it, or why?
I mean, in a great question. Yes, and also no, right? Because I think there are organizations that are doing innovations to make internet available at every zip code globally, right? So now it comes to us as healthcare systems, as policymakers, as leaders, to partner with this organization to say, hey, if you're innovating and making sure internet is accessible everywhere, how do we now partner with you to make healthcare more accessible, right? So healthcare, I think, is everyone's business. We all need healthcare, right? So that's when I think the part of cross-industrial collaboration really starts playing a role here. Healthcare is really beyond the walls of the clinical settings, as you know, Grace. So I think that's really some of it, right? So 5G innovation is one. Really looking at telehealth, which really, in 24 hours, we had telehealth up and running during COVID, but we were not doing it before. So here, a moment of awakening is, we are able to do these things, but we have to do it proactively, not just reactively, right?
Wow. You're so right. Kind of thinking about that now, what challenges are you foreseeing, that in kind of some of these potential tech equity initiatives, changing this lens, and, how can organizations overcome these obstacles, overcome these thought processes that they've had for so long?
Yeah. First, a sip of tea, because, heavy question.
Drink that tea, girl, then spill it.
Spilling the tea. It's a good roast and black tea. I'll share about it as we wrap up, right? But one of the primary obstacles really lies in the digital divide that persists across socioeconomic and demographic lines. Access to technology, digital literacy, reliable internet connectivity are significant barriers for many undeserved communities. And then we move on to the implementation of new technologies in healthcare settings. And this often requires significant capital investments, infrastructure upgrades, which can be really challenging for resource-constrained healthcare organizations, right? And then, Grace, we have financial barriers that can perpetuate a cycle of technological inequities, leaving really the undeserved communities behind, advancements in digital health, the tools, the platforms that could be evolved. And another critical challenge really lies in the need for culturally competent and inclusive design for digital health solutions.
Yes. Yes.
So again, it's clear that we're coming back to the same point, right? Which is inclusiveness and creation in the design, which means that we do need to bring them in, which is cultural context, the languages, accessibility needs, and all of these, looking across different populations. I had a friend who was sharing with me that, Simi, I'm in one zip code. How inequities show up in this zip code? And if you move 5 blocks down, it's completely different. So then I thought, there are inequities within inequities. There's so many layers to this that needs to be unraveled. And that's when we need, community influencers really doing this, right? We have national strategies working on this, but that's not enough. We need to be doing this from our homes, from our streets, from our communities. And that's really what would make the change from a root level, not just us band-aiding a few of this, right? Furthermore, I think the last one is really there are concerns about data privacy, security, and the potential for algorithmic,
yes.
Yeah, a little bit of tongue twist. So really, us looking at AI biases, machine learning technologies, looking at internet access, but really, looking at it at a foundational level and doing the foundational work. And my favorite quote always is, we want the right things to work faster, not the crappier things, right? So let's clean up the foundation and then talk about AI and automation than the other way around.
I love that. It seems like in healthcare, just make the crummy things work faster and better, and the crummy systems and it's like, no, it's not only crummy, but it's inequitable. So it's about more than just not working right. It's about, it working well and correctly and within this lens of seeing people in an equitable way.
Yeah, and in a truly, Grace, this is actually also good business sense, right? Because we always go back, right? We do something, then we're like, okay, it's not working because you have to make the small change. And we go back and we start from scratch. We are losing money doing that, right? So the call really to action is, let's do it right when you're going to start it, right? Let's not repeat it. And that's really a good, business sense. And also, thinking, as a business leader, we do want to be, in every market segment, right? So I think it's truly just good business sense to do it, but also it's a responsible citizen to really for us to show up to be doing this the right way. So two sides of the coin.
So true. So true. So now I would love to learn more about you. We talk business, we talk tech, but I would really want to know what drives you as an amazing leader that have worked in so many different parts of healthcare from different roles. What drives you? So what are some habits or things that you have in your personal life that help you work your best and make a difference?
Great question. Many things, right? So when I was young, Grace, I come from a family of physicians and politicians and everything. Had a few losses, right? But it made me really realize that we have to take care of our own health. Like no one else is responsible. It's not the policy. It's not everything else. If you can eat right and be physically active, right, most of the diseases are preventable. So that's one, right? For me personally, I have a rule 5 days a week for the last 15 years. 2 hours in the morning is physical activity time, right? So I practice Ashtanga yoga every day, 2 hours in the morning, and then I can do whatever needs to be done, right? So I prioritize my health because I truly believe that if you're selfish about your own health, you're actually selfless with your loved ones. Because you can think about it, right? You're worried about your parents, your loved ones, and you tell them how to eat right. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be a burden, right? If I'm taking care of my health, everyone can sleep in peace, right? As a daughter, as a friend, right? So I think that's that. And I spend a lot of time in nature. I love hiking. I'm out in the nature. That's key. And I eat well. I'm a raw vegan chef. So most of my food is plant-based, no red meat, no meat per se, no milk, no bread. And I've been that way for 15 years, right? There's a lot of science behind that. And if you've seen, Grace, the industry is moving towards a plant-based diet, which is responsible for the earth, responsible for ourselves. And we have seen a lot of disease states go up when you're not on a plant-based diet, right? So there's a lot of science, clinical trials behind that going on. So to me, it's eat right, be physically active. And the last one is being kind. I'm working on it, right? Everything is a practice in life. So being kind to ourselves, being kind to everybody else, and knowing that in our finite time, there's infinite opportunity to change lives. And that starts from us. So we have to take care of ourselves and then the rest falls in place.
I love that. And I love that your nutrition background kind of fuels a lot of the health choices that you're making in your life. Are there any great recipes that you're like, this is so easy and it's just filled with the right nutrients and I love it, that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yeah, good question. Busy person, right? I'm up and running. So my favorite thing, and I've always loved, is smoothies. Easy, blend it all in, all nutrition in one. My favorite recipe is a cup of coconut water, some blueberries, right? 3/4 cup, I would say, a couple of bananas. I don't believe in calorie intake. This is something I'll point out on. Everyone's metabolism is different. So I don't believe in calorie as long as it's natural. Obviously, pre-existing conditions, check into that. So a couple of bananas, dates for iron. I love using a scoop of vanilla protein powder. I use raw vegan ones, plant-based, which is extracted from pea protein. So no whey. And then what else do I add? I may add some chaga powder somewhere in there. I like the nuttiness, the flavor. I'm all about the aroma and the texture. And then that's it. Blend it up and add spinach, cilantro. I'm a big thing about cilantro, right? Because we're exposed to a lot of metals nowadays, right? With the lifestyle we live. So cilantro, spinach is my go-to. I drink this almost every day, like almost a 20 ounce to a 30 ounce.
Yummy. Well, I think that we should do virtual breakfast one day and make your smoothie. So I'm going to be texting you after this and we're going to figure out a time to do that because I know all of us would love to try it.
Love it. Whenever you're ready.
So, kind of moving into more serious conversation, obviously huge obstacles come our way when we're women leaders, no matter who we are, where we are, when we are. What are some strategies you have in your personal life when those obstacles hit you, when doors close, that help you just get through to the next thing?
The first thing I'll say, Grace, and if you watch me on news, you'll know that I believe in, when a woman steps into the room, it's not whether you're a woman or a man, right? It's genderless. You're a human. That's where it starts. That's where it ends, right? So we talk about obstacles. I'm just going to talk gender neutral. Same obstacles for everybody else, maybe some different for us, right? I think it's really, if you're talking about business obstacles, leadership obstacles as a woman, then to me, it's a mindset change, right? It's important how we think about ourselves and how we show up in the room. To me, I'm there for my talent, for my leadership, for my skills. That's about it. I'm not there as a woman. I'm not there as a man. None of that plays a role in my head, right? So I think that mindset shift has to happen within us. And when that happens within us, it would automatically happen outside in. That's my mantra. I've been raised that way. I've been living that way. So that's one. But if people are not in that mindset yet, then my request would be to make that shift. But secondly is also understanding that, listen, I believe compassion, kindness can move mountains. Even in the toughest of the situations, be kind to yourself, hold space for other people to show up, go through the ups and downs, right? But also hold your position. My dad often says, Simi, never forget your position. For the longest time, I thought, I don't know what it meant, right? It always meant that be in a place where you understand your value, be in a place you're always humble and you're willing to learn. So it's always that equation creates curiosity, creates expansiveness, creates inclusiveness, but really change starts inside out and the outside in just happens.
Hold your position. Now it's making me really think, and I'm sure everyone else is feeling the same way. Like, what is my position that I need to hold here?
It only took me 30 plus years. So, still working on it, right? Changes context, changes per person, but it's more about understanding. What it really means is understanding your values, right? And now I've come to this value mapping exercise, understanding what is my value? What is my essence? And then how do I match my essence, which is understanding who I am, what matters to me, and then using that for service to others, right? So that equation of essence, how you show up, which is your energy, and then eminence, right? So the 3 E's is what, kind of the value system.
So inspiring. Definitely gives us food for thought today. So, before we end out, I'm wondering, what are some of your 3 top takeaways on the future of health? We're all healthcare innovators here listening in. And what are you hoping to see?
Yeah. So my 3 takeaways always has been for the future of health is the first one is empathy. I think empathy has to be at the core of everything we do, from technology to patient care. There's no way we can make progress without having that as the core. The second one is placing equity at the center of our technology. This is important for the society we serve, and truly it's just a good business model, right? The third one, Grace, is we are only strong as our weakest links. And as a collective, we have to make sure that we lift others up. And that shows up in making sure everyone has equal access to internet, equal access to food, healthy food, the facilities, and more. So I think, really the 3 things are empathy, equity, and collective ways of working.
I love that. So now for the folks that are listening in today, where can they find you online?
Great question. They can find me on LinkedIn. Smriti Kirubanandan is my name. They can find me on my podcast, which is also called HLTH Forward, or they can just Google. They will find me there. But if they need to reach out, LinkedIn is a great way. Essential emails are there. They could reach out there. But I'm here, as you know, as much as required.
Awesome. Now, before I forget, did you happen to bring tea with you today?
I did.
Now tell me about your tea or your mug.
Okay, so tea. Again, I'm going to start with a quote, or maybe wrap it up with a quote. Tea, though ridiculed by those who are naturally coarse in their nervous sensibilities, will always be the favorite beverage of the intellectual. It's a quote by Thomas D. Quincy. So thanks for sharing tea with me. My tea, I love the blend of black tea and rose petals. I think it's the most elegant blend. I love being in London. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. But this is from Fortnum and Mason. And if you've been there, Grace, it's you go to the store, it's literally like my Disneyland, right? 3 levels of tea and seasonal cookies Yes, it's a trip worth.
I'm going there this spring, so I'm going to have to go.
Yes, I mean, you have to. And I mean, it's really one of my favorite spots. But this tea is really the blend of, the rose petals, the elegance of it, and the depth of the black tea. It's just the aroma. I just love the elegance and the smell of it. So that's my tea. And the cup is a Japanese, actually a teacup gifted by a friend from Canada. So it's really made of ceramic, but if everyone's looking at it, it's got the hues of blue, the dark purple, which is the essential color, but really very soothing to the eye and to the soul. So that's my tea. What about you?
I love that. Well, I have my blackberry sage tea.
Ooh.
And I give this tea as a gift to like so many people. Anytime it's somebody's birthday and I haven't given them the tea before, I love to gift it to them. And I got this mug actually as a Women in Health IT gift exchange. So you kind of join it, and then women from across the world will send gifts depending on who is pulled. So it's kind of like a secret Santa, but it will happen randomly throughout the year. And so this was one of the mugs that I got from a wonderful woman in Arizona.
Wow. Yeah, I love the copper color filled with blackberry and sage.
Absolutely. It's my favorite right now.
I want my house to smell like that. That sounds great.
I know the aroma is just fantastic. So it was so wonderful to have you here today, Simi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Grace. Thank you.
And thanks to you folks for joining us too. Check out the Hi Tea with Grace podcast website for more great interviews like Simi today. Cheers.
Like a Girl Media is more than a media network. It's a community. We want to meet you and amplify your voice and the voices of outstanding women innovating in healthcare. Interested in starting your own podcast or hosting an event near you? Connect with us online or in person. We're here to support and empower you.